Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Week 10 edition of Commissioner's Corner, the KAEP. I am your host, John Gillespie, for your weekly podcast. Want to apologize for last week, fellas. We had to take our bye. We're all entitled to a bye, your commissioner included. So that's what I did last week. But we are back on track. So before we get started, I'd like to give a shout out to Pete Serpa, our producer, for making this possible. And also, as always, here on the KAEP, we promise to make you a much smarter fantasy player, yet a much dumber person. That is my promise to you personally out there in the PVFL universe. Alright, guys, we have a lot to look forward to, a lot to discuss. The games of the week, the weekly highlights, and also the playoff picture and the playoff breakdown, along with a look ahead to next week's matchups. So without further ado, let's get into our game of the week. An NFC clash of the NFC Titans, basically. Foreman versus Ali, Frazier versus Ali, Buster Douglas versus Mike Tyson, whatever you want to call it. It was a clash of the heavyweights. Belichick yourself versus the Orange Crush. Congratulations to the Orange Crush for pulling out the victory on Monday night. Guys, this game was heavily monitored, and it did not disappoint, coming down to Jarvis Landry on Monday Night Football to seal the deal for Juan and really cement and solidify his lead in the NFC, along with the first round bye. His top performer was Mark Ingram, 131 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns, in tune to 31.1 fantasy points. Guys, this is real. This is not a fluke. The New Orleans Saints are a run-first offense. And for Belichick yourself, your top performer was another New Orleans running back, in Alvin Kamara, 106 yards, a plethora of catches, hashtag analysis, and a touchdown, in tune to 24.8 fantasy points. This is one of those wacky years, guys, where an offense can sustain 2 top 10 running backs in the same backfield. This is very rare, but this is the case with New Orleans. Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram are set it and forget it starts. Lock them in every week. Moving on to so before I get ahead of myself, so Juan Guzman improves to 8-2, and then Belichick yourself improves to 6-4. Moving on to the next game on the tally, the battle for a playoff positioning, the Thirsty King versus Secret Squirrel. Congratulations to the Thirsty King in winning the games that matter most. This was truly a must-win scenario for both franchises. Secret Squirrel comes out on top, 111.9 to 96.4. Secret Squirrel's top performer was Golden Tate, 6 catches, 97 yards, and a touchdown, in tune to 21.7 fantasy points. And for Ethan Taylor, his top performer was AJ Green, 5 catches, 115 yards, and a touchdown. Most of this came on that 70-yard bomb for a score, which was an amazing play, guys. I'm sure you're looking at that right now. But that was Ethan Taylor's top performer. So with the victory, Secret Squirrel improves to 4-6. Thirsty King falls to 3-7, having lost 6 straight games. Moving on to I Love TDs versus Ivan Rodriguez and the Silent Ones. Pete Serpa is on a march, guys. He is rolling his 3rd straight victory. Remember back when Pete Serpa was 3-4? Well, that is no longer the case. He is now 6-4 and has solidified himself, practically cemented himself in the playoff picture. He's a virtual lock for the playoffs now in that 5th seed. His top performer was Matthew Stafford, 249 yards and 3 touchdowns, in tune to 21.7 fantasy points. For Ivan Rodriguez and the Silent Ones, his top performer was Marquise Lee, 6 catches, 55 yards, and a touchdown. As I mentioned with the win, Pete Serpa improves to 6-4. Ivan Rodriguez falls to a league worst 2-8. Moving on to the next game on the tally, Killer Beelers versus the Chief. What an amazing upset for the Killer Beelers and snagging their 3rd victory of the year. Nick, your top performer was Juju. Who? Juju Smith-Schuster. 5 catches, 97 yards, and a touchdown in tune to 20.7 fantasy points. And for Pedro, your top performer, as always, was Tom Brady, the ageless wonder himself. 266 yards and 3 touchdowns in tune to 22.6 fantasy points. I don't know if you guys were aware, but the Chief was riding high, seemingly unstoppable, winning 5 straight games. But then Zeke gets suspended, so he loses Zeke. Then Aaron Jones gets hurt, so he only gets 2.2 fantasy points. And then on top of that, if it couldn't get any worse, Devontae Freeman goes down with a concussion and could be out multiple weeks. So Pedro's strength was his running backs with Freeman and Elliott. So he lost his strength. He's been decimated by injuries. He now must rely on Tom Brady, and I don't think it's enough, because really Pedro has no other running backs on his roster. So I predict a free fall from this point on from you, Pedro. Unless you can make some miracles happen, turn some water into wine. I don't know what you're gonna do, buddy, but you need to act fast. You only have 3 weeks left in the regular season before the playoffs start, and you could potentially fall out of the playoffs. So I can see you losing 4 in a row, buddy. We'll see if it happens. I hope it doesn't, but anything is possible. Moving on, so with that, Pedro, falls to 6-4. Nick improves to 3-7. Moving on to the final game on the tally, What's Cooking versus the Little Lamb. What's Cooking's top performer is DeMarco Murray, 42 yards, a plethora of catches, and 3 total touchdowns to the tune of 29.2 fantasy points. And for Ethan Lopez, his top performer was Sterling Shepard, 11 catches and 142 yards to the tune of 25.2 fantasy points. With the victory, Austin has solidified himself with a bye, virtually guaranteed at this point. So you're 8-2, Austin. Little Lamb is 4-6 and is currently outside looking in the playoff picture. Speaking of the playoff picture, let's go to break down the playoff race and the playoff bracket as it stands as of tonight, Tuesday evening, 11-14-17. Juan Guzman, Orange Crush, is the number 1 overall seed at 8-2 with a first round bye. Austin Bennett is the second overall seed at 8-2 with a first round bye. The Chief Pedro, for the moment, is 6-4 in the 3 seed. Belichick yourself is the 4th seed at 6-4. Pete Serpa and I Love TDs is the 5th seed at 6-4. And Secret Squirrel is back in the playoff mix with the 6th seed at 4-6. Let's look at the schedule here a little bit. Let's check out some notable games here. Now, there's another NFC showdown this week. I Love TDs versus Belichick yourself. They both have identical records at 6-4. So the winner could potentially slide up to the 4th or 3rd seed, and the loser could be the 5th seed. So that's some implications there. Now let's look at Orange Crush's next game. He'll be facing Secret Squirrel. So can Secret Squirrel pull off the impossible and take down Orange Crush? We will see. That's vital for Secret Squirrel to win this game to keep her playoff hopes alive. She's hanging on by a thread to the 6th seed. What about the Chief? Who is he playing this week? He is facing Ivan Rodriguez in the silent one. So Ivan, you have a chance to play spoiler. You could wreck Pedro's season. You have a chance at that. That's always fun. So you can play the spoiler there, buddy. And what about What's Cooking? Who is he playing this week? Austin is facing the Thirsty King. Ethan, will you lose 7 straight? Or could you pull off an upset and potentially weaken Austin Bennett's hold on the bye? Who knows? So guys, those are the games of note this week. We look forward to those games and those matchups, potentially a couple games of the week there. That should be interesting. So, without any further ado, guys, that's all I have for today in this Week 10 edition of The Cap. So stay tuned for next week. I know Thursday Night Football, we have a very exciting game. Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Tennessee Titans. Should be a fun one to watch with a lot of fantasy implications. So, alright guys, this is your host, John Gillespie, for your weekly podcast. Signing off. Till next time, fellas. #analysis.